What's up, guys? It's Nikhil Bhat here, and today I wanted to mix a track that I just recently recorded. It's called Soul Goal. It's one of my favorite tracks that I've ever made. That's actually out on my SoundCloud if you want to check it out. When I got the opportunity to perform in DC, I had to write lyrics to it. Yesterday I recorded those lyrics, and today I have to actually mix those vocals into the track. I felt that people would really benefit from just watching my mixing process. So let's get started. When I put out the instrumental, I had mixed it to some extent so you can see that the sample chop, so you can see I turn on this EQ that actually chokes a lot of the sound out of it because I only wanted the high end. I don't want the bass frequencies down here to interfere with the actual bass in the song, and so I cut that all out. And so it was a process of just listening and hearing what pitches sounded good, what pitches sounded bad, and so that's kind of how I got this vocal curve. This is already done, so let me show you on the drums kind of how I would walk through it, because the drums don't feel perfectly mixed to me right now. So let's throw an EQ8 on here. So what I'm first going to do is cut out everything except for one little filter, and what I do is I take this filter up and I sweep across all of the frequencies. And so if I start playing the drum beat, you can hear that as I sweep the frequency range, you get, different frequencies that stand out. And that's kind of just what you want to listen for. So I know that the snare, it kind of interferes with my voice and the sample range. So I want to find that snare and kind of tone it down a little bit. So I don't like that frequency too much, so I'm going to drop it just a little bit. You don't want to cut out too much when you're EQing, no more than 2 decibels, I'd say. So this one I'm just doing like 1 decibel. I like the boom in that kick, so I'll keep that spread out. And then I'm just going to add a little drum bus effect on there, just to kind of really bring out those drums. I know they're already compressed, but let's hear how it sounds. Definitely can reduce the dry wet on these a lot. Just putting a little bit of drum bus on there. This is a very, very simple beat. It's really just the sample chop, the drums, the bass, and like a movie sample that I sampled, so you can hear that here. It says hear that music just before the drop, so
hear that music.
I love this sample, so I threw it in there, but it's nothing fancy. I just threw a little compressor on there to, bring it out more. For those of you that don't know what a compressor does, it basically takes the louder parts of the sound and brings them down to fit the level of the quieter parts so that everything has a more equal level. I put a compressor on there so it would have a little bit more power, but I'm actually noticing that it's drowned out a little bit by that compressor, so I might reduce it and try to see how that changes it.
Hear that music, hear that music, hear that music, hear that music, hear that music.
And we can go to the bass and listen to the bass.
Hear that music.
So what I might do is put another drum bus on there. Do you see how much punchier it got when I put that drum bus on there? Drum bus essentially is a compressor and a little bit of saturation, a little bit of noise, all together in one plugin. And so when you put it on your drums, it really adds a lot of punch. Sometimes it can be too much, so you might need to tone it down. Here's an important thing to note. When you're mixing anything, you can listen to it in isolation, so I did that for a minute. But you'll find it has a completely different tonal quality when it's actually in the mix. So I want to actually listen to it not soloed and with everything else in the track. And that'll give me a much better idea of how I need to raise the volume, lower the volume, what frequencies I need to cut out. And so we can just do that right now. That bass sounds so much better than it did in the original instrumental. Basically, I think this bass sample sounds good the way it is, so now we can start mixing rap vocals. Since I have 4 takes of the rap vocals and 4 takes of the chorus, what I'm gonna do is kind of listen through them and find the parts that I like and chop those out of each take, and hopefully at the end, those will trickle down into a usable final piece. I don't want you guys to just have to keep listening to my voice, so I might speed through this part a little bit.
Alright, I used to go 100, type to gun it in the fast lane. Never quite the same, contemplating what my past changed.
You can see that that's all done now. It's all this nice little rainbow, and that's because all of these were different colors, and when I cut out the best parts from each of them, it maintained all the colors on the comp track. The first thing we're gonna do is apply a gate. And a gate basically cuts out all the noise below a threshold. So if there was any air conditioner noise or there was noise from the street, you don't want any of that in there, especially in the compression stage when you'll actually feel those get louder. And so you want to eliminate those now. And so as my gate, I'll be using a plugin from Waves that's called X Noise. It's a smart gate, and so it can actually learn the noise profile and eliminate the noise that way. So let's throw that in there.
Used to go 100, type to gun it in the fast
Right now it's
lane.
learning the
Never quite
noise
same,
profile.
contemplating why my past changed. Maybe because I let it blow up in my face. Oh, and I just need some breath room. I'm feeling pressure to be better than friends.
After you do this, you just want to listen through and make sure no important frequencies are getting cut out. And so I can hear that there's really nothing important getting cut out, just some mumble noise beneath. Next stage, EQ. So I will grab an EQ8 plugin and throw that on there. And the first thing you're gonna wanna do is cut out the bass frequencies of the voice so that it doesn't interfere. So if you actually watch this spectrum right here,
Used to go 100, type to gun it in the fast lane. Never quite the same, contemplating why my past changed. Maybe because I let it blow up in my
you can
face.
see this
My
peak
days
right
in the
here
place, don't know
is
what
really
to
where
do.
my
Should
voice
I
is the
be
most
in your
powerful.
face, go get it.
And over here,
Shot
obviously it's
creature,
going
my
to
dear,
have this
go
higher
let
pitch
it.
stuff,
The way I see
but all this
you
stuff
now,
down here is really just
I don't need to
garbage
scream loud,
noise. And
need
so
to
you can hear that when I actually try to cut it out.
I don't want to stay alone, I just need some breath room. I'm feeling pressure to be better than friends. Talking how to dress what I express with a pen. So I've been writing all day till my hands go weak. Lately on my tracks, packed Tabasco heat. Never.
Okay, so I cut out the bass frequencies up until it started sounding kind of weird and robotic, and then I stopped right there. And the next curve that you're gonna wanna put in is actually a boost right at the frequency where you cut, because that's generally where your voice is the most powerful, and you could see that in the spectrum from earlier. So I'm gonna take this high pass filter and bump it up right here, have a little notch.
Never quite the same, contemplating why my past changed. Maybe because I let it blow up in my face.
You can see that it already has more power. Now I'm gonna frequency sweep for frequencies that I don't like.
Never quite the same, contemplating why my past changed. Maybe because I let it blow up in my face. My days in a craze, don't know what to embrace. Should I be in your face, go ghetto with the bold sweaters? Shy creature, my demeanor like the cold weather. The way never quite.
So you can hear me cut out that little middle frequency because it sounded really boxy. I'm probably gonna want most of the high frequencies, so I'm just gonna boost up here.
Never quite the same, contemplating why my past changed. Maybe because I let it blow up in my face. My days in a craze, don't know what to embrace. Should I be in?
That adds more shininess to my voice. It's kind of all the high-end stuff that I'm adding on and boosting a little bit. So you can hear it without it.
Never quite the same, contemplating why my past changed. Maybe because I let it blow up in my.
A little bit more power. Next thing we're gonna add on is a compressor. And so that's gonna give my voice a lot more power, and especially when it comes to rap vocals, it because it brings all the quieter parts louder and the louder parts quieter. You get a lot more power out of the quieter parts, so everything sounds more powerful. So let's just throw a basic compressor on there.
Don't know what to embrace. Should I be in your face, go ghetto with the bold sweaters? Shy creature, my demeanor like the cold weather. The way I seem now, feeling like a recluse. I don't need to scream loud.
Okay, so you can see that little orange bar in the middle is gain reduction, and you can see that it was just wavering a little, so I'm compressing a very small amount. Ableton also has a great feature where you can watch what it's compressing on the waveform.
Never quite the same, contemplating why my past changed. Maybe because I let it blow up in my face.
So you can see the parts that it's pushing down and basically how it's equalizing the whole curve, which is really nice. The next thing that I like to add is a saturator. So a saturator generally adds more drive, and that's like noise that it adds to the voice, and that gives your voice a lot more warmth. So I'm going to use this a bit warmer preset, fitting, and reduce the drive just a little bit, reduce the dry wet just a little bit. I know this is a pretty intense preset on its own.
Never quite the same, contemplating why my past changed. Maybe because I let it blow up in my face. My days in a craze, don't know what to embrace. Should I be in your face, go ghetto with the bold sweaters?
You can see it adds a little bit more intensity to the vocal. The next thing that I want to add is a little bit of delay. I would add reverb because that's what you generally add on a voice, or at least that's what people think you add on a voice to add that kind of room effect. But reverb actually pushes vocals back into the mix. It makes them sound farther and farther away. When it comes to rap vocals, you want to have your vocals way up right in your face. And so you don't want to push them back in the mix. And so to still provide that amount of space and to kind of make it like sound boomy and in your face, you want to use delay to achieve that effect. So let's add a little bit of just the stock Ableton delay on there. It's already on a send track, as you can see, default, and I'll just dial that in using these little dials right here.
Never quite the same, contemplating why my past changed. Maybe because I let it blow up in my face. My days in a craze, don't know what to embrace. Should I be in your face, go ghetto with the bold sweaters?
And now the most important part is listening to those vocals with the mix. Like I mentioned in the last video, you can do a lot in isolation, but it doesn't matter how the vocal sounds in isolation unless it sounds good in the mix. So let's listen to it with the instrumental and see how it sounds.
Alright, I used to go 100, type to gun it in the fast lane. Never quite the same, contemplating why my past changed. Maybe because I let it blow.
Alright, so I'm hearing just a little bit of interference between that vocal sample and the instrumental and the vocals themselves. And so what I can do is I've grouped all the instruments together and I've grouped all the vocals together. You can see that when I shut these groups. So the instruments group can be affected on its own, all together. So anything that I put on this instruments group will affect everything all together. And so I have this EQ8 here. And so I actually notched that out a little earlier, I'm realizing. And so just notched out kind of where my voice is and where I feel that interference, which is kind of higher up here. And that gives space for my vocals. So you can see I'm only cutting out like a decibel or two, but that provides a little space for my vocals to be louder and sit in the mix better.
Alright, I used to go 100, type to gun it in the fast lane. Never quite the same, contemplating why my past changed.
Okay, I think that sounds pretty good. Altogether, that's a really, really simple chain for how you might start out mixing your vocals. I might go in and add some other plugins. I've got some Waves plugins that add a little bit of character to the delays and characters to the compressors, like CLA vocals is a good one, and H delay is another good one. And so I might go in and add those, but gate, then EQ, then compressor, saturator, and finally delay is a good place to start just to really get your vocals to sound a lot brighter and sit in the mix a lot better. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe. It helps a lot. And I will catch you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.